recording, just so that's happening. Okay, I have joined on the space pond. All right. Yeah, everything's all set in mind. If we want to give people a little more time, or we want to start now, we can go whenever.
Let's start now. I think there are some really big questions that a lot of people want the answers to. And so let's cover those later, and we can start with some sort of more casual softball questions, and we can start ramping up to the more serious big news type questions, if that sounds good to everyone.
Definitely.
Yeah. And everyone, if the best way to ask questions is to join the Space Poggers Discord, which you can find a link to via at Space Poggers NFT on Twitter, and then asking or typing your questions in the flight deck chat. I can see Tony in the chat screaming "start," and so we'll be reading everyone's questions from there.
All right. So the first one I have, I think, will be a nice good softball one. Would be where we are right now in terms of what type of merch we're looking at. We've been talking about that a lot actually in the engagements we've had in the Discord of the hoodie, what kind of style looking for that, and about where we are in terms of the merch store, and what we're currently looking at right now for a time frame.
Yeah, so for the time frame, it depends on the actual production of the merch goods that we're working on. The target that we had for us was mid to late of next month, which is why we have a bunch of stuff in the pipelines coming up before then. But for the merch drop, we'll have its own dedicated website, professional models being shot wearing the merchandise. And the box itself and the clothing will be extremely high quality, which is why it'll take a bit more time to basically be churning out. But I suspect that a lot of the time going into the merch aspect will be sort of also trying out different ideas for the community, because we are going to be likely delivering the nifty box hoodie that a lot of people are really excited about and asking for. We also want to try out some concept arts and splash art designs of the characters, more of kind of a very cool street style wear, and seeing how people respond to that. Because I think even independent of Space Poggers, right, just the design of say the gorilla or the bee just by itself in some sort of cool street style style, that itself just looks really cool and badass, even if you have no fucking clue what Space Poggers are. And so that's sort of the stuff we're exploring on the side as well. The first drop won't be too crazy. I know we tease some insane stuff that we're doing in the future, like freeze-dried space food and honey or our own bread of ramen or whatnot. That's much more farther into the future. But for the first drop, we're just focusing on really high quality professional clothing.
I think we lost Roger.
Hey, Roger, you there?
It said connecting, and I think he got disconnected.
I see. He's still set as a listener. Okay, I'll go through some questions myself then. One question: will the merch be delivered internationally? I think currently the plan was just for domestic for our first launch. But in the future, I think we are going to start doing the international stuff. It's just that if you had to do it internationally, the merch would take much longer to get out. And the more than just prioritizing getting merch around people in the world, we really want to keep the hype in the community going and the energy going. And so that's something that we're prioritizing for the short term.
Nifty, if you want, I can read the next question. I'm in the Discord as well.
I'd love that. Thank you, Crypto.
Yeah, no problem. So there's been quite some discussion going on in the general chat about how to market Space Poggers, which I would like to hear your thoughts on. Should there be one voice, Space Poggers, or should there be a separate communication, which is the 13 tribes? The tribes are USP, but to start/boost the Space Poggers, would it be better to create awareness on the entire project before focusing on tribes? And how do you see this in combination with all the effort of people on Twitter, which is amazing, by the way?
Yeah, this is a really, really great question and really intelligent question. So what we're going to start to do is sort of develop out the lore and the characters of Space Poggers on Twitter for each tribe individually. And the Space Poggers NFT official account will be the sort of hub for retweeting, for aggregating all of those type of interactions, and so everyone can see it all neatly organized in one place. But each tribe will start to develop a very strong identity, and of course, this is a huge undertaking, right? That can seem quite daunting, which is exactly why we've hired this marketing team to be able to take up that task, as well as doing a lot of other stuff such as media outreach, et cetera. And so I think within the next week, we'll be full steam ahead in one of the initiatives that we want to start on that end.
Nice. Okay. So another question is, I'm from Puerto Rico. Does that count as domestic?
I'll have to get more details from the merge team on that crypt chain. I don't have an answer for you.
Alrighty. And then, so somebody just said, I'm in the US and I'm totally willing to order extra merch and personally ship it to people outside of the US. Is that a possibility, I guess?
We certainly wouldn't stop you, Cherry, guys. I think that's a really nice gesture. So if you're able to do that, then I think that would solve a lot of concerns.
Cool. I had a question.
Sure.
Are people allowed to maybe come up and ask a question personally?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so
Yeah. If
anybody wants to come up, I guess you guys just request, and if you have anything to say for now.
Yeah. CryptoStuck, I've seen you around, I've even interacted a couple of times. I'm gonna send you a co-host invite so you can co-host the space for me. It looks like Roger's having some difficulties.
I just got it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, hey, Daniel. Oh, wait. Did he approve? Yeah. Do you have any questions, Daniel?
If not, Crypto, I think you can scroll up to some of Chef Yebi's questions in the flight deck chat, and you can start getting into some of the more intense questions I think people have been asking.
Okay, cool. I see them right here. So do we have an update on the animation team contract?
Yes. So if you see most NFT projects in the space, right? Most of them actually don't have a specific product, like the NFT is the product, and most of their actions are, I guess, marketing and community building. So we sort of want to do everything that they're doing, which is exactly why we're hiring full-time marketers. But also, we also want to develop the animation side, but we're not going to try to cut corners on the animation side in order to satisfy people in the short term. And that's what all the marketing and the other initiatives will be for. And so for the marketing side, we're actually in contact with some very impressive writers and animators of popular animated series that most people have heard of already. And we're in talks with them. And we're also in talks with people from notable companies such as Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, etc. And those are the people that we were trying to get contracts signed with. It's kind of a pain in the ass because especially for some of like the large companies, they're generally used to taking like months to sign contracts. And that's been a really annoying thing for us. But if we need to start developing shorter term contracts with people in the short term to sort of develop the lore and sort of kickstart our process with smaller productions. In the meantime, while we sort of iron out these contracts with bigger companies, then that's something that we would be keen on doing. But right now, we're talking with someone from one of these sort of like notable animation studios that we're really excited to work with. But if that falls through, then we have plan B, C, and D, and so we're all good there. But we'll see what the timeline is for the animation contract and getting started with work on that. And we'll announce details as soon as possible, as soon as we're able to. The other projects, like their core community might just be whales, or their core community just might be like people who are aggregating around some sort of luxury brand, or aggregating around some sort of like the community, like social aspect. Might not necessarily be creative, but I think that's something that's really unique about Space Poggers that we want to carry forward moving on.
Got it. Okay, so now is Rarity Tools updated for 0? And if yes, can you tell people?
Rarity Tools is updated for 0. So if you go to rarity.tools and you type in space poggers under all collections, then you should be able to see 0 ranked.
Perfect. And then are there any partnerships or collabs we could see sometime soon we should be on the lookout for?
Partnerships or collabs, nothing that I can announce yet, but you can expect to see some sort of charity partnerships hopefully within the next month.
Alrighty. Now another one was, will Frogfather be a canonical piece of the PCU, which is the Poggers cinematic universe?
I'm going to pitch it to the writers for sure. I think like the idea of like the Frog Mafia and the Frogfather is so funny. I really like that.
Cool. And then we have another one here. Should we give the special community art contributions, which is the fan art, a special spot so it doesn't get lost and new people can see easily, like a Hall of Fame?
I think so. I think we're going to set up a gallery on our website, especially so everyone can see all the incredible Poggers fan art.
Okay, perfect. Is there an ETA on additional setups on rarity tools as the current ranking is not that well, like Wayne and etc. Waiting, I believe, and etc.
I'm not sure what that's referring to, but the rarity tools team is doing that on their end. It's not an official Space Poggers scoring system.
Okay, and then Conda said, how will the floor sweeping of Poggers be done? Is there a certain threshold you are looking at to sweep the floor? Will it be a once a week thing? Will you be doing this out of the reserves from trades?
We'll have more information on this later, but like the floor sweeping thing, I think can be a very divisive topic. But like we don't want people buying the project just for the incentive of floor sweeping, and so the floor sweeping will be centered around other interesting initiatives that Space Poggers has.
Got it. And then another one is, what about the Hive King UU PCU?
Again, like I love a lot of ideas from the community that I'll be pitching to the writers. I think the idea of Beyonce is quite funny, so maybe we'll do that.
All right, and a little bit off topic. How are you doing, Nifty? That's from Renice.
I'm doing pretty well. I think, of course, I want to announce like a lot of stuff immediately, but until like all the contracts are signed and everything's in place, I'm unable to. But I'm generally feeling like very enthusiastic and optimistic about the future of Space Poggers.
Okay, awesome. So Obzar asked, have you considered using NFT 20 to place the Poggers from sweeping?
So Fubzar, we're actually set up a Poggers liquidity pool for people to be able to trade in their Poggers. And we'll actually have a Medium post on that very shortly and be posting that. So people are aware that they don't have to list Poggers at floor price. They can simply trade it in for a different Pogger.
Perfect. And then Tony asked, are you guys getting enough sleep? Because we're not. And I just think that's the whole NFT world, period.
Yeah, I think people in the NFT world generally sleep significantly less than other humans.
Yeah, right on. So that was we have no more in the chat so far, but if anybody wanted to come up and they want to request to speak, ask any questions, feel free to send a request. But I actually had a question. So what's going on with the LP? I believe you said that we will be able to deposit sometime in the future our Poggers into a liquidity pool.
Yeah, the liquidity pool has been set up already, actually. We are just writing a Medium post explaining to everyone how to access the liquidity pool, and we'll be posting all resources for everyone to access it.
Okay, perfect. And then I have another one from Daniel. Oh, wait, it's gone.
Yeah, is a duplicate question. No worries.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so if anybody else wants to come up and ask anything.
Yeah. I think we'll leave the room open for 5 to 10 more minutes, and if no one has any questions, then I'll just end the room here.
So on the LP is are you gonna use the NFT 20 or how's that gonna be?
We'll have more details as we announce that. You can expect that in the next 48 hours.
Cool.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Good, it's Conda. Yeah, I'm just curious more about the LP. I am very familiar with LPs on DEXs. I'm curious how an LP works with an NFT.
I would say the model to go look at is the Bored Apes liquidity pool and see how they did it. And I think you can expect a very similar structure.
Gotcha. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else got any ideas flowing? Any questions? So Roger is in the chat, said the recording is happening, everyone. He's unsure why it says that he's trying to connect. He can hear everything. And he says, I'm doing great. Thank you.
All right, we have more people typing in the chat right now. Let's get more questions going.
Okay, cool. So I think this question's already been answered, but when the Nifty hoodie?
We're targeting a launch next month. Can't give an exact date.
Got it. And then how are you feeling about the overall process of the project post-launch? I'm super excited for the future of this project and can't wait to see all of the upcoming additions.
I'm generally feeling extremely good about our core community. I think one of the things that have skewed people's expectations within the NFT space is that a lot of the projects built around hype with no substantive value. It's just merely based on other people attributing it to have value and having a value going up in the future. Has skewed a lot of people's value perceptions of how quickly they should expect the price of their tokens to go up, and if their tokens aren't mooning on day 2, week 2, then they're like, oh, this project is not doing anything, which is just not true. Actually, a lot of the projects that you see doing quite well don't really have a roadmap or are not actively working on things for the future at all. There's a very, very bright future ahead of us, and that will withstand the test of time. And a lot of really smart people in the community always talk about how 99% of NFT projects will lose value in the future, which is absolutely true because there's no substance or there's no actual business surrounding the tokens. The tokens are the product itself. And when people start to think that their product has no value because it inherently doesn't, then that's just dead in the water, right? So I think of the team we're building, with the animations, with the relationships that we're building, with the outreach that we're doing with the media, with the things that we'll be doing of charity in the future, that will build a long-term sustainable brand and recognizable characters that will be able to withstand the test of time. But it's really a slow and steady march for us for now. But I can definitely see once people start to see what we're working on, then Space Poggers going in a completely different trajectory.
Awesome. So Logic requested to speak. Did you have anything to say, Logic?
Yeah, you kind of pretty much answered it in that last response, because I've been onboarding a lot of friends and people into the NFT space, and you kind of alluded to it in regards to they don't really know what projects to buy into. They're not sure which, some, not necessarily the initial flip, but about communities. So I guess NiftyWhale, just I guess in a more succinct piece, how would you what would you say to newcomers in the space in regards to analyzing a project before they purchase? I've been following you for a while. Space Poggers is dope as hell, just based on the community I've seen you build. But what would you say to those who are new to the space and have no idea where to look or where to turn or where to purchase, and what should they be looking for, especially with space poggers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really great question, Logic, especially because like even people in my life that sort of onboarding to NFT scene, they ask a lot of these sort of similar questions. I think the first question to ask is like, what is your goal? Because if your goal is financial incentives versus artwork versus like the social utility, then I think the answer becomes very, very different. For example, if you are looking to make good return on your investment, right? Then you want to be buying like you want to be minting like the newest upcoming basically hype drop. And if you do it reasonably well and you're experienced enough over time, so you sort of understand how to set gas prices, then you'll make 3 to 5 times your investment in the first couple of days. And then you can choose to sell or not sell depending on the long-term value of the project. So that's what you do if you have a financial incentive. If you have a social incentive, if you're trying to embed yourself into the community, learn a lot, then I would suggest for those people to sort of buy into these sort of reputable projects that you see currently going on in the space with proven strong communities behind them. That include like Bored Apes, that would include Cool Cats, that would include CryptoPunks, etc. Now, for these sorts of projects, what you'll find is that it's more stable, but your returns won't be as insane. You won't be making 5x most likely within like a week or so. But you'll be able to learn a lot by basically diving into these communities, learning all the incredible people around it, and just learning and from all the people around you. And so that's the sort of route you want to take if you're trying to learn as much as possible about NFTs and get some of the social utility as well. Also helps to get a voice in the space as well, because people recognize like the profile picture that you have and say like, oh, like they're part of that community, I'm going to go follow them. Just so many people say all the time, like you get a profile picture of a certain project and everyone else also in that project start following you. And so that's a quick way to onboard onto the NFT community. If you're really bullish on this sort of future of these multi-million, multi-billion projects that are coming out, these multi-million, multi-billion things that are starting as projects will become companies in the future. That's a very long-term value investing strategy that you want to do, which is the same thing as space poggers. A lot of people in the space are thinking quite small. They just think of it as a project, right? But if you look at the sort of returns on this project, they're doing 7 figures in profits day one of their project launch. And if these people have competent leaders and competent business leaders, competent marketing, like very experienced people at the helm of these projects, that you're not buying into a project, you're buying in day zero stock into a company that will one day be worth multiples more. And so if you're sort of value investing, if you're sort of looking at the future value of that company, then that's also a very different view of the sort of flipper mentality or the social utility and learning value that I described earlier. I would say like the 3 things that I just outlined there are primarily the ways or the primary categories or buckets that people would fall into when looking to buy, purchase NFT, get involved in the community. So Logic, that's how I explain it to my friends, and maybe you can take some stuff from that, and when trying to explain NFTs to other people, that's sort of you can get some stuff from that.
Yeah, that was amazing. I'm glad the way you broke it down in those 3 steps, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room who just probably found their way into space poggers have no idea what a lot of the things that we're speaking about. So I'm glad you just kind of broke that down in layman's terms, so a lot of people can start from ground zero, have some type of direction, and it helps me articulate in a better way of the options that they have within this space.
Yeah, Logic, absolutely. And I think a lot of people in the space poggers community do recognize that. Like they talk about how they're planning holding for several years, how they see the long-term outlook of the project as an entire intellectual property new company rather than, oh, this is just a NFT project I'm buying into. A lot of people in here have a very long-term outlook, and so it's so great to see.
100%. Appreciate you, bro.
Appreciate you, Logic.
All right, so back to the chat. Fubzar said, will there be any new weekly community activities of some kind?
Fubzar, I think we are absolutely planning these sorts of tribe events, and I would want to also get input from the community on that. Roger's been very diligent in collecting all inputs from the community since day one on how these sorts of tribe events, tribe wars, like all these other cooperative activities will sort of play out, but we can definitely expect like these sorts of community activities in the future.
Awesome. Then we got Crip Train. He keeps hearing about people talk about a Pogger game. What type would it be if we were to get one? And obviously, how would our Poggers be integrated with it?
Yeah, Crip Train. So what generally happens for these NFT projects that has like a sort of game utility layer built on top of it is that there is some mechanism to connect your wallet to the game, and then the game downloads all of the metadata and then generates all of the assets to basically be able to interact with the game with. I think right now we're mainly focused on all of the shorter term goals to get the project lifted off the ground, which is the marketing, which is the animations, which is the merch, which is the contests and such. But in the future, if you were to develop a game, we would likely just license our assets to a reputable game studio and have them use their assets to build like a game layer using our intellectual property and NFT tokens. So that's how that integration would occur.
Nice. And then Crypto Raider Kondo wanted to ask one more thing.
Hey, Nifty, I'm kind of curious how you guys came up with the idea for Space Poggers, 12 Tribes, and why you decided working with Bear Brains for the art, just kind of the backstory on how this all came together.
Yeah, of course, Crypto Raider. So I think the main inspiration for the project became building a lasting intellectual property and building a lasting sort of actual real product that is going to withstand the test of time, right? So you can imagine, like, especially now in the current NFT landscape, there are new projects coming out every single day based around a new character. They just have different accessories. That's kind of it. Most of these projects will definitely not withstand a test of time. Like 5-10 years from now, you can definitely see like not existing. We're trying to build a very long-term lasting product that exists outside of the NFT space, that exists outside of just like the crypto association. So you can imagine, like, once you have sorts of these animations, we're doing stuff on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, like you won't even have to know what an NFT is or understand what crypto is in order to enjoy these characters and in order to enjoy the storyline or to appreciate the tradable things that we're doing. And so that comes into play with the character aspect of we're not just trying to reskin one character, we're trying to develop lasting intellectual property, and for there to be storyline and lore, there needs to be multiple characters. We like the idea of these sorts of talking animals, different tribes in space, just going on these sorts of crazy adventures. I think the sort of backstory and lore behind that was sort of brought from these stories that we, like the initial people on the team grew up with, which I think will resonate with a lot of people. And for tying into Bear Brains, I think I went through so many hundreds of artist portfolios, and Bear Brains really stood out to us for his very unique style and take very cartoony thing that, and we thought to ourselves, like, okay, so now this sort of unique style that really stands out is what we're going to be able to create these really iconic characters and develop like an entirely new intellectual property around. And so that's sort of the backstory of how Space Poggers was born, and like the sort of mission and vision of where we see ourselves several years from now.
Gotcha. You know, I love his art. Kind of, for some reason, I get that '90s nostalgia from his art
Absolutely.
style. It just kind of reminds me of those like paper cups that we used to have as kids with the squiggles on it. I don't know why, but I just love the art.
Yeah, and I think everyone outside of the NFT community will love the art as well, and so we're really excited to, being able to penetrate the mainstream culture with your characters.
Cool, appreciate it.
Okay, so we have another one from Fubzar. So he said someone talked about the pre-sale poggers would be good to hold, and would it give some kind of benefit?
Yeah, Fubzar. So we expect to be rewarding, like, because like all the data is public on the blockchain, right? So we expect to be rewarding like our diamond-handed OGs from the get-go in the future, because these are the people who have basically stuck with us through everything, like our day zero supporters. And so I don't know about pre-sale poggers. I don't think those really hold any significance. But like, if you look into your account and we see that you've been there during your pre-sale and you've been holding your poggers since, then you can expect some exciting stuff in the future. But again, as I discussed earlier, like the priority right now is to basically be lifting off the entire intellectual property. It'll be difficult for us in the short term to be doing these sorts of smaller projects to reward like subsets of the communities. community reward, I think the best community reward will be being successful for Space Poggers as a brand and intellectual property and becoming like a very big force in the space is, I think, the biggest reward we can give to everyone right now, which we're intensely focused on.
Got it. And then Tony jokingly said, "Why no horse tribe with the sad face?"
That's a really great question, Tony. So we actually had a list of animals that we did want to do, but within the constraints of like the generative art aspect and having to have very similar face shapes, there are some characters like such as a horse that are extremely difficult to execute on. Like for example, you want to do a whale, or for example, you can imagine a world where like we try to do a flamingo and it just doesn't work because they have very long, slender necks and a beak that, you know, takes up a lot of real estate on their face. Like there are some animals that we would have wanted to do that are very difficult to do. So, but that's a really great question.
All right. And then Daniel said, in regards to Fobzar, where there'll be any weekly community activities, he said, in regards to that, if understood correctly, there are rewards for your activity in the community, tribe, events, and what kind of rewards would this be?
Yeah, we'll have to have more information on this later, but as we sort of start ramping up the marketing team, establishing our intellectual property, establishing different voices for the various tribes, at that point, people can expect to start seeing that play out.
Alrighty. And then, do you believe that 12K is too much supply?
Yeah, so BTLC, that's a really interesting question because we chose 12K supply specifically, which is higher than the traditional 10K supply because of our long-term goal of penetrating the mainstream space. And if you see the number of active wallets on OpenSea today, it's only about 100K, which is an extremely small number within the overall context of the world. And I think a lot of people in this community or in and around NFT community are futurists, and they understand that that number will be millions and millions one day. And in order to have people participate on the tribes and be part of a large community, even 12K is too small. But right now, of course, what we've seen play out is that 12K within the short term might be too large of a number, which is exactly why we're looking into these sorts of sweeping mechanisms, locking up characters in a vault to be inaccessible for a long period of time, etc. And so for that sort of perspective, then yes, it does seem like it's too much for the short term maybe, but in the long term macro scale of what Space Poggers is trying to accomplish, it'll still be too small. And so I think that's our outlook on it currently. But we do have a very keen focus on the short term to make sure the project is able to get to the place where we want to be in the future.
Nice. And that was from Large Cat. So now from yours truly, listening to this space is making me so happy to be a part of this community. It's been clear from day one that the crew and the helm has the right mentality and a fantastic plan in place. I guess it wasn't a question, it was more of a statement.
Yeah, thank you, yours truly.
Solus, will we get to see how Zero Tribe first looked as an iguana?
Yeah, so Zero is a cyborg iguana, as some people have come to know. But you'll be able to see more of them in the lore and animations. But so the short answer is yes.
All right, and then Tony asked, "Can you create a Pogger marketplace so we don't pay those large fees for OpenSea?"
Yeah, Tony, eventually. But I think for right now, what people need to recognize is that OpenSea is a huge driver of volume and attention within the current NFT landscape. And if you're not listed on OpenSea and you're moving up the charts in OpenSea, then that is a concern for a lot of people. And so within the short term, maybe not, but in the future, definitely. The only notable project that I've learned from is that that have moved off OpenSea successfully is Axie Infinity, but those guys are doing like billions in revenue every week, and they simply don't need the OpenSea marketplace in order to basically sustain their business. But Axie Infinity is the only project that I know of that has been able to move off OpenSea successfully. Like even like CryptoPunks, like Bored Apes, etc., you'll see them all active on OpenSea.
Nice. So Tony said, okay, I think that's pretty much it. on the questions in the chat. Did anybody else have anything to say? Wanted to come up and say anything? Now, but don't be shy. If anybody has anything to say, please come up and say.
Yeah, I'm curious about one other thing. Have you talked to any other NFT projects about doing collaborations? Or have you thought about doing collaborations with other NFT projects?
I'm so glad you brought that up. So, as people may have heard, Klon, which is the illustrator of Cool Cats, was hanging out in our Discord yesterday, and they really love the Poggers as well. And I think it would be so cool to do a Cool Cats / Space Poggers Cats collab. And we have reached out to them about that, and so we'll keep the community updated there. In case we don't want to get everyone's hopes up until everything's set in stone and confirmed, and so can't give away too much information there, but that is something we're very keen on. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, you got it.
Great question.
Yeah.
Did you say something else, Conda? I don't know if you were cut off at the beginning of the.
No, I was just thanking everyone for appreciating my question.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Don BTC had requests. How you doing? I might be having some connection issues. If you want to leave and come back.
I do have a question.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey, thanks for being on the show. I love the project. In regards to the collaborations, what can we think about? Will there be like new graphics, or what does that mean?
So in terms of collaborations with other projects, it comes in many forms. And so some of the collaborations you might have seen is when the two artists or illustrators from different projects come together, they do a collaborative piece and they sell it on the marketplace for people to enjoy. And another thing that you might have seen is that two communities collaborate with each other and to do sort of giveaways with either communities and stuff of that nature. And so collaboration can look very different depending on how the project founders discuss how they want to approach it. But as for Cool Cats or any other collaborations that we might be planning on doing in the future, those details haven't been ironed out, so I can't give a firm answer on what the nature of that collaboration will look like today.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Daniel.
And Don, did you fix your mic? Okay, so then we have in the chat, Daniel asked,
can you guys hear me?
Updates on both Tesla and Special Zero drops on the 1st. 1 second, Don. Yeah, now we could.
I don't know what update would need to be made there. It's just that the contest ends on September 1st, and then we will choose the winners accordingly based on the guidelines that we set out.
Okay. Don, did you want to go ahead and say something?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Don. How are you?
Yeah.
So I just had a question in regards to any decentralized, any DeFi incentives you guys might add to Space Poggers, if you guys were considering like PFP staking or any other types of functionality like that.
That's a great question, Don. That is something that we're interested in exploring in the future. We've already taken the first steps by setting up a liquidity pool for Space Poggers as well. More info will be announced on that very, very soon. But I think our main priority right now is to establish the intellectual property, build an actual product, and then once we set up the DeFi protocols or whatever things that we might be interested in the future, then the money will come flowing in, and people will be secure that their money is going into an actual product, an actual project, not just hype. And we wouldn't be opposed to any third-party applications.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
Hey,
Thank you, Don.
Thanks.
Thank you, Don.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that made me think of something. Decentraland and Voxels, I know they have a bunch of spaces where communities bought like a plot of land and built a headquarters around them so that other members could meet in virtual reality. Has Space Poggers thought about doing anything like that? Like actually building out this space arc in VR so that people could go there as their Poggers?
Yes, I actually have a meeting scheduled this week with someone to discuss exactly that, and so there's a possibility that we're exploring. I think it would be super cool.
Yeah, me too. That's awesome that you're already on that.
Nice. Good question. Wicked.
I was just going to say, fellow Pogger here, I got a Hypno Glasses one. I like the project. I actually just bought it on a whim. I just have a question. I have two questions. One, is Poggers in relation at all to Pogs, like the little coin, the cardboard coin things that I used to play with as a kid?
No, unfortunately.
Okay,
not.
I didn't know if that had any relation to that whatsoever. Do you know what I'm even talking about?
Yeah, I do know. Yep.
Okay. The second thing is, if I made Pogs out of my Pogger, would you guys reshare it?
Of course.
Awesome. All right. I'm super stoked on the project. I just jumped in, but I had that little funny thought. I really like what you guys have done in terms of the artwork. It's incredibly unique, and I got the elephant with the Hypno Glasses, man. It's freaking cool looking. This is a really interesting project. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Of course.
Yo,
thank
if you
so
make
much.
if you make some slammers, let me know. I'd love to get my hands on a Pogger slammer.
Looking forward to seeing
Honestly,
your
I was just gonna
Space
say the
Pogger
same thing.
Pogs. Actually, you shouldn't be directing this compliments at me. We have Bear Brains in the room as well, who actually did the illustration, and so
Beer Brains.
Bear
All right. Yeah. Well, let me follow you guys because this project is awesome. This artwork is very unique and friendly and appealing. You know, I was showing my dad my list of NFTs, and he really likes my Wicked Apes. But as I scrolled down, I showed him other stuff that I didn't have, like the Bored Apes, and he thought it was lame. And then I showed him the Poggers, and he was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what's that?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just my little space Pogger." He's like, "Dude, that's fucking cool." He's like, "I want to get one of those." And I'm like, "Really? Like, this is the first one you said you even showed an interest in." So it was rad to have him, like, he liked the turtles. It's the turtles.
Cool. And then Bear Brains actually requested to come up, so he's
coming to accept his accolade. Yeah, but to echo your sentiment, I've seen a ton of people discussing how they weren't able to get their significant others, their husbands, their wives, their friends into NFTs, and then they looked at Space Poggers and they're like, "Oh, cool, this is something really different," and they suddenly like got it. And so full disclosure, I've bought into a lot of other projects, including Cool Caps, Apes, etc. But like for those projects, they don't always quite get it. But for Space Poggers, I think something really clicked for them, seeing all of the characters and those really bright backgrounds, and they can sort of start to see like the unique personalities, this really unique intellectual property that we're building. And so I think a lot of people have experienced that what you have said, and that's just really exciting for the future. I think that we will be able to have that mainstream appeal across all genders, across wide age ranges, etc.
How do you, as an organization, I presume you have some level of cohesion between the working parties of this. How do you, as Space Poggers, look towards the future of the utility that this could have behind it? And do you have anything? I heard, like I said, I just jumped in. I heard something about staking them on a local platform, which would be amazing. I would totally stake mine. I wish all NFTs had staking kind of baked into them. But what do you, I mean, maybe not even something that you have, but is there anything that you aspire to? Is there anything that you've seen come out recently, like whether it be airdrops for Pogger holders or community events, in-person meetups, like anything? You know, is there anything on the radar or anything on the roadmap?
Yeah, that's a great question. Absolutely. I think this is something that's been asked before, but what we're trying to do is to develop intellectual property first. Second, do the media and marketing very, very well to get a lot of attention, to get a lot of capital flowing into the project. And then third, being able to translate a lot of that financial gain and rewards back to the community and just keep the energy and hype going. And that'll be in the form of, say, like financial/DeFi incentives. That'll be in the form of airdrops. That'll be in the form of being able to access exclusive merchandise like social events, whatever. So the Poggers will gain infinite utility as the project goes on, and as long as the project survives, the utility of the project will continually increase. Is the long-term roadmap and plan for Space Poggers.
That's awesome to hear. This wasn't just a one-off art project from some incredibly talented people, that this is actually something you are, as entrepreneurs, investing in on a higher level.
Absolutely. And if you look at on our 3-year roadmap, you'll see that on year 3+, we have launching a Tesla Cybertruck into space. And so what's likely going to happen there is we'll get like plushies made of all the characters. We'll probably sell them as merchandise beforehand because I think all the characters are incredible. And just getting them seen made as plushies would also be incredible. And we'll probably load them up into the actual Cybertruck or car. And as we're sort of at like the rocket launching pad and launching this into space, like I think inviting all of the Pogger holders and their basically ticket being able to see that rocket launch being like their NFT token was a really cool long-term goal. And if we're able to do that, then that's just that, like even that, which would be really fun to the future, would be just the beginning for this incredible community and this intellectual property that we're building. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to in the future.
Just get
I
us
think
back
that's
to
a
Artem.
fantastic idea, and I'm all for
Max.
space travel. May I, as somebody who has no bearing or right to speak upon your project, submit an idea for something you could do with that kind of capital? I think that I've seen a lot of people doing opportunities where they're building water wells in underserved or underprivileged areas, and it'd be fascinating to see people getting to have their Poggers featured on projects, whether it be food donations or larger projects to help sustain communities, whether they be small or medium-sized in underserved areas. It's fun to think about sending a bunch of plushies to space and what that would do for the attention. I always am looking for a way to benefit those around me who do not have the same level of success as I am, and I'm curious to know if that's a perspective that we share.
Oh, absolutely. I think what you'll find in the next month or so as we make more announcements is that a big central goal and mission of Space Poggers is actually like the entire concept and lore behind Space Poggers is just these animals coming from these different backgrounds. You can imagine it. So I guess this is teasing the lore, but that hasn't been really public before. But you can sort of like it almost mirrors like the state of the world that we live in today and the situation of COVID-19 of these different characters coming from different backgrounds, dealing with their own hardships and journeys, coming together, going for an inspirational journey adventure throughout space, right? And so if you kind of reflect back to the core mission of the project, developing a community and the things that we want to do with the project, it's a lot around like bringing in a lot of joy and philanthropy and all these sorts of things into the world is so core to the mission of the project. That's been a part of our public goals since day one of the copy and our website. And so I think that's something that you'll be very pleased to hear and can continue to expect from Poggers moving forward. I think besides like all the animations and cool financial incentives and shit we have planned, like I think when people start to see and look at our project and see like, oh, NFTs aren't just a cool fad that people are using to make money. It's like it's having a real positive impact on the world. And I think that core mission and what we're trying to accomplish there will be one of the biggest differentiators for Space Poggers that will carry us onwards in that very slow march and that lasting intellectual property that a lot of these kind of hype projects, a lot of these quick like make a flip and make a quick buck projects won't be able to basically be able to follow us on into the future because they're not thinking long term like us.
That's outstanding.
Nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question.
Thanks, Wicked.
Yeah.
Ali, you had requested to speak. You want to go ahead and speak, Ali?
Yeah, thanks. I just had a question. You were mentioning that you were trying to kind of secure and expand on your IP. I just wanted to know what kind of, I'm assuming you're going to give a licensing agreement. If that's already in place, how extensive is it going to be?
Oh, you're asking about our licensing agreement? So if you go to spacepoggers.com, and then you scroll down to terms and conditions, then that entire licensing agreement is laid out in section 3.
Okay, I'll take a look at it, and then if you don't mind, I'm just going to look at it, and then if I have a question, just follow up.
Yeah,
Is that
thank you so
cool?
much, and I'd love your feedback. I can see from your bio that you're a blockchain securities attorney, and I would love to also discuss with you various topics around and around the NFT space, because I think a lot of these projects are like their primary team and competencies. They get like an artist, maybe like a front end designer, like an engineer, maybe like a marketing person, and then they're just go. They don't really have like the legal nature or like licensing stuff completely figured out yet either. And so I think your contributions and knowledge in the space could be extremely valuable. And so I'm interested on hearing you speak more about your expertise in the future.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. Yeah, I just wanted to see what kind of clauses you have in there. I feel like given what's happening with Visa and with Arizona Iced Tea, now Budweiser, I feel like there might need to be, at least for the clients I have, amend their licensing agreement so there's some sort of carve out for brands.
And so that's our main priority and focus for now.
Great, thanks. I guess to add on to that, would you consider using any third-party applications, or would you allow, say, one of your assets to be staked on